So I'd like to welcome you all to our first session in WestGrid's fall training program. Our speaker today is John Simpson. He's a digital humanities specialist at Compute Canada. He's based at the University of Alberta. John's going to give a brief overview of WestGrid and Compute Canada. He's going to talk about what resources and services are available for researchers in all disciplines and walk through some of the basics of getting started. I'd like to ask any WestGrid staff attending at the video conference sites to please wave their hands to the local crowd so they know who you are. Feel free to ask questions to these people who will open up the mics, and they'll also be available after today's session for more questions and things like that. So thank you very much for attending, and over to you, John.
So good morning. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you, Todd, for the introduction. I'm going to talk to you today about Compute Canada, and I'm going to talk to you in particular about WestGrid. The focus of the session, as Todd has already pointed out, is the very beginning, the initial step, how do you get started? And how do you get started about what? Well, very much about powering up your research. Compute Canada and WestGrid want to provide you with the opportunity to take the sort of computing work that you might do on your laptop and provided a serious upgrade so that you can do things that you couldn't do elsewhere. Instead of having your laptop melt a hole through your lap onto the floor and a trip to the hospital, we actually want to have you competing for awards and so on and so forth because you're able to get work done that you wouldn't be able to get done otherwise. So we'll start with a little bit about Compute Canada, and then I'll move into WestGrid, starting from a national perspective and then moving down into our more regional body. So Compute Canada, we're a non-profit or a not-for-profit organization that's funded by CFI. And we're funded by CFI to take care of the research. Oh, I see my slide hasn't changed on the other screen yet. It's being really slow, so we'll just give it a moment to catch up here. Oh, there we go. So it's caught up here. Sorry, there's a bit of a lag as we move back and forth. So Compute Canada, see in the top left corner, not-for-profit organization. It's funded by CFI. That's the Canadian Foundation for Innovation, if you didn't know. And we're funded to ensure that we're able, as a country, to provide really top-tier research. And computation and things associated with computation, things like storage, these are very important parts of computation today. So as an umbrella organization, Compute Canada has approximately 200 staff, world-class experts, whether it's in a specific research area or topic or actually just running the machines themselves. These people are distributed across the country. And we spend a lot of time training and working with and supporting thousands of researchers. So what sorts of things are we involved in? Well, if you look in the top right corner of this slide, you can see we're involved designing new jet planes, customizing cancer treatments, modeling oil reservoirs, some new work that's really interesting in terms of mapping criminal networks, right? We also mine historical texts. So basically, if there's any research that you're doing, Compute Canada probably has a role it can play, and I'll provide some initial steps that you can use to get involved in just a moment. So Compute Canada is the large umbrella organization that looks after Canada as a national, Compute Canada is the national arm, or the national body. But there are 4 major consortia that make up Compute Canada. And so on the far east of Canada, we have AceNet, which looks after the Atlantic provinces. We have Calcul Quebec, which looks after Quebec. We have Compute Ontario. And Compute Ontario actually has a number of consortia that are still active inside it, but we'll just talk about Compute Ontario as a single body at this point. But we also have WestGrid as well, and that's what we're here to focus on today, just a little. As much as this is really just a family, right? So services that are available to WestGrid are also available to AceNet, available to Calcul Quebec, available to Compute Ontario. So as much as there are national services that are branded as such, they're Compute Canada services, there are still some services that are attached to the individual consortia. And those services, as much as they're perhaps owned by WestGrid, for example, they're available to anybody else across the country. And this is part of that family partnership. Looking at WestGrid in particular, right, we can see that we have roughly 15, the number is growing, partner institutions across the 4 provinces, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia. And these partner institutions all have, mostly have, most of them will have staff, or some of them might actually have hardware on them as well. And so the researchers at these places are able to interact directly with the staff on site. And if they don't have any staff on site, then there's usually staff nearby. It's just an email or a phone call, and you can get help you need. We'll talk about those emails in just a moment. But this is what WestGrid looks like from a very, very high-level perspective. And of course, there's groups that aren't part of this now. So the new colleges and some of the smaller universities that I wasn't able to squeeze in there cleanly. The goal for Compute Canada, right, and WestGrid being a part of that, is we want to become, and this is symbolized in this logo here, we want to become a research portal. So you can see it kind of looks like a parking symbol with a little arrow there, but you can see the R, that's the research, right, and the P is for the portal. We want to become your research portal. If you want to do work with your machines, this is the place to be. And this logo, I pointed out specifically because if you go to computecanada.ca and you click on the research links, you'll start to see this a lot, and I want you to understand what that's about. So, as a research portal, I will talk specifically today about 8 different things. And these 8 different things are probably best seen as kind of umbrellas or large boxes. Some of them are a little bit more specific than others, but we can cram a lot of information into them. I know you only have about 20, 25 minutes for this, given the hellos and the goodbyes at the end, so I don't want to waste your time. I want to draw your attention to the things that are important, and then we'll move on from there, because you'll know where to go to ask for help. So we'll start by talking about compute. So when you think Compute Canada, you better do something that's computationally oriented. So currently in Compute Canada, we have roughly this, roughly 171,000 cores distributed across the country on roughly 44 machines. Now there's sites that have more than one machine at them, but depending on how you count, there's 27 or so sites across the country that are currently providing research support through machines. Some of these machines are quite specialized, right? So here at the University of Alberta, where I'm talking to you from right now, we have a very special machine. Its name is Hungabee, and it has 16 terabytes of memory, 16 terabytes of RAM. That's more than some of you have on your entire hard drive. It's more than some of you would have if you took all the hard drives in your house or that you've ever owned and stashed together. Well, some people have very, very large jobs that require a lot of memory so that they can have very fast access. This is the kind of power at the very high end of the scale that's available for people. But not everything here needs to be very high end. Some of it just needs to be a little bit more than your desktop. And so, for example, for many researchers, particularly those from the humanities and the social sciences that are just getting on board with what we might call advanced research computing, new cloud systems that Compute Canada is bringing on board can be quite helpful as well. They provide you with a sandbox environment where you can create your own virtual machines. So these are machines that can run different operating systems, right? And they're being run on these very large boxes on servers elsewhere in the country that people can access, and those jobs can just run in the background, and you can do whatever you need to with your regular laptop. GPUs, graphics processing units, these are also becoming popular, and we have a growing supply of these. They're particularly useful for certain mathematical calculations because they can be programmed at right at the level of the chip. So you can, if you have the skills to do that, then you can program these to do your math faster, and if you don't, we have experts across the country that can help get you started down that road if you need to. So compute is something that we have wrapped up. We have a lot of compute. We also have a fair bit of storage, and storage is something that we're all needing. Storage is something that is growing, I might even say exponentially without fear of being cliche here. So currently, we have about 30 terabytes distributed across 30 petabytes distributed across 35 systems. So not every system that we have has a large storage contribution. So we have a particular system, right, at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon that has 3.1 petabytes of storage and 2.3 petabytes of tape backup. And I'll talk a little bit more about this tape backup in a moment, because this is important for many of you who want to hold on to some research and you don't want to let it go, but you don't need regular access to it. The point for storage, though, is this isn't a whole lot. And so at this slide, I want to take a moment and draw your attention again back to the previous slide, right? And the compute that's available, and look at the storage that's available. And this is a point to recognize that Compute Canada is changing. Compute Canada has just received approximately 30 million, in funding from CFI to do a major hardware refresh. And so what's going to come with this refresh is more compute and more storage. It's not just about more, it's also about less. So all those different systems here for storage, we have about 35 systems across the country. It becomes really difficult to navigate and to manage and to administrate all those systems. So over time, over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, these systems are going to consolidate down to 4 focus systems that are going to hold a massive amount of storage. It's not guaranteed yet, but they're talking in the neighborhood of about 60 petabytes and a whole lot more compute. So things are changing. And over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, we're going to change. And we're going to change to try and help serve you better. So if we don't have what you need right now, now's a great time to put up your hand and say, what about this? Because now's the time when we can start considering putting these things in place, because now is the time, the crux or the focal point of change. But there are things that we're going to want to keep around, things that were available right now. You may not need terabytes of storage. Certainly most people don't need petabytes of storage. Some of you do. But in terms of things that will be accessible to everybody, I'd ask you to put up your hand, but I can't see. But just think about putting up your hand when I ask you this question. Who uses Dropbox? Right? Most hands would probably go up. Of Dropbox-like storage. Well, this is available to you. It's available free to researchers in Canada through Compute Canada through a very particular service called OwnCloud that WestGrid runs and operates. So if you're interested in having 50 gigabytes of Dropbox-like storage for your research, then stick around and I'll show you how to get a hold of that. Yes. Okay. Is everybody able to still hear me? Can I get a thumbs up, Todd, if you can?
Yeah, we're back online. Yeah. Thanks, John.
We're back online. Sorry, we dropped out. Should I go back or we're good?
I think we're good. I think we caught most of that. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Sorry about that.
As well. Thank you.
Okay. So, another thing that's important for research, compute and storage, they're certainly the bread and butter, but things aren't all about just the core components. If we're going to do research today, it's hard to do your research without seeing the data. When we start to talk about big data or large data, data that's complicated, data that is intricate and detailed, people want to see. And they don't just mean that as a metaphor. They really want to see what's there. And as good scientists, whether we're scientists in the pure sense that we talk about here in your chemistry, biology, or physics, or perhaps in the more European sense of science, right, where we have our humanities researchers and our social sciences as well. Good scientists want to see. They want to know. They want to see for themselves. And being able to see inside the data can make things that are very, very complicated simple and easy to share. So whether it's for a conference presentation or whether it's exploring your own data to know what's even there, visualization is really important. WestGrid, CompuCanada recognizes this, of course, and WestGrid in particular recognizes this. We have a dedicated support specialist. His name is Alex Razumov, and he does little tours traveling around, teaching people how to use tools like this to get their work done. And most of the time, a lot of the time, trying to run a tool like ParaView on your laptop, you can do it, but if your data set is large enough, it can be churning away for days or weeks. Wouldn't it be really nice to put that on a server somewhere else, have that chug through all the data, and then give you the visualization at the end? Well, these are the sorts of things that become possible once you join CompuCanada and WestGrid. CompuCanada and WestGrid are also about advocacy. And when I mentioned before about putting up your hand to make sure that you're letting us know what sort of compute or storage or services that we can help you with. Well, CompuCanada as a body, right, and WestGrid as a body, we want to put up your hand to help you lobby for the sorts of funding and research that needs to be done. So CompuCanada leads SPARC, which is the Sustainable Planning for Advanced Research Computing Group, and this advises the government, right? It advises them on how we should grow our cyber infrastructure, right? CFI, through their Cyber Infrastructure Initiative, right, is looking to reshape CompuCanada, and it's doing this in a really interesting way. Not only is it providing funding for new hardware that CompuCanada will hold, but in conjunction with that, there's a two-stage challenge that researchers are able to pick up very significant grants in the order of $5 million. And as those grants come in, that tells CFI and CompuCanada what sorts of research needs to be done here in this country and what resources are needed to support it. And so as the money comes in to change the systems, we're able to change them in a way that's responsive to the researchers and their needs. And the second round for the research funding is just coming up, and there's some consultations that will start taking place in the next little while. And if you're interested, you should take part. CompuCanada also runs HPCS, the High Performance Computing Seminar or Series, or Symposium, that's it, Symposium. And the next one will be here at the University of Alberta. It'll also be held in conjunction with CanHITE, the Canadian Higher Education Information Technology Conference. And this is a large conference. It's a medium-sized conference that focuses on high-performance computing. And so here's a place to meet experts, both within the system administration and the provision of the services side, as well as those doing the actual research. And it's a really nice place to meet people and to learn how to do things. There's a number of workshops that take place there. And according to National Geographic, Edmonton is one of the best places to visit in the world. I don't know why they said that. I live here. I think it's a great city, but I don't know if it's in the top 10 or whatever. But if you believe National Geographic, there's a great reason to come to HPCS next summer. Globus. Globus is a particular tool. It's a national service for CompuCanada, and one of the things that means is that there's documentation available in both languages. And Globus is a tool for file transfer. It's fast. It's very fast. It uses a technology called Grid FTP that instead of just pushing all the data through a single pipe, where every time you lose a packet, you have to start again and slowly build up your distribution, your speed. It breaks that pipe into smaller pipes. And then if you lose a packet within one of those smaller pipes, the others just keep going at full blast. It's a great tool if you really want to frustrate people at Starbucks. But it has some other features too. It used to just be a command line tool, but now it has a really beautiful web interface. So it's basically drag and drop access to all the data centers across the country that belong to CompuCanada. And so if you need storage, well, this is a place where you can come and you can use Globus to access Silo, which is the system I mentioned at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. And there, if you have a default allocation, you get 1.5 terabytes of storage. Just everybody with an account gets that. Decent. Especially for many researchers when you realize the first 500 of those are backed up to tape. So here's tape backup for 500 gigabytes available to every researcher in Canada. Pretty nice. And this is a tool that enables that. It's also secure. You can turn on encryption, and it will encrypt your data before it sends it. It will decrypt it at the other end, and it's super easy. And this is the part that I really like, because it's enabling researchers that don't have a high degree of technical capability, or they don't feel that they do. It's often a matter of confidence, to feel that they can make use of these services as well. This is a point I really want to drive home. Consultation, please come and talk to us, right? We want to provide support for you as researchers. And the best way to do that is to have a conversation with us before you apply for your grant. Why? Because we can provide you a letter of support that can put an in-kind valuation on the services that Compute Canada will provide. That's a boon for you in getting your grant. It's also a boon for us, because when you do get your grant, as we really sincerely hope you will, that's why we're helping you, we're not surprised, and we know it's coming, and so we can already have the space in the pipe for you, and you don't have to wait quite as long to make this happen. So whether you're looking for procurement, deployment, you're interested in making your code more efficient, these are sorts of things that you should come and talk to us about. Again, there's 200 experts across the country with a wide variety of skills. Somebody here knows something that can help you. Come and talk to us. Right? Help us help you. Support, right? Even if it's not designing the next great research project and you just have questions about how to use the system, right? Again, I want to drive home this number. There's roughly 200 experts across the country. We have people stashed on 35 campuses. There's probably people on your campus you don't even know about. We have national specialists in, we've already talked about visualization, but also security, cloud, and in particular, the digital humanities, which I'll just touch on really briefly here at the end. This will be the last of our drill downs, and then I'll tell you how to actually get this help and support. And I bring up DH in part because I am the National Digital Humanities Specialist for Compute Canada, but I'm also the Digital Humanities Specialist for WestGrid and the Digital Humanities Specialist for the U of A. And when we use the term DH right now, it really is big tent DH or large umbrella DH. And what it really means is anybody who is not in the traditional sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, those we have lots of very specialized experts in. But Compute Canada and WestGrid are looking now at all the researchers, right? So I work with architects. I work with people in the social sciences. I work with people in economics. I work with people in human ecology. Anybody that doesn't quite fit into those larger boxes that I already mentioned, we're looking to find ways to help you do your work. Right? We have a working group that's focused on supporting these researchers in particular, and the people who are part of that working group love it because the challenges are so different. If you've come for support from somebody else before and they've said, we don't know what to do for you, it doesn't look like A, B, and C, and that's all we do, come and talk to us. We want to understand your research. And again, this is a time for change for Compute Canada. This is a time to put up your hand and say, I have something that's a little bit different. Let's work on this together. So, all this said, these 8 little boxes, there's a whole lot of resources here, right? I didn't go through and describe every single system that's available and all the different styles of compute that can be done. Same with the storage. But where can you go to find this stuff out? Well, let's start first about how to get an account. Right? So web address that you need to remember is computecanada.ca. If you can remember that, then you can find the login link on the left-hand side of the screen, and you're good. But if you'd like to go to that login page directly, the URL is here at the top of the screen. It's ccdb.computecanada.ca, and that ccdb at the front stands for Compute Canada Database. This is the system that we use to track all the researchers and their sponsored members that are a part of Compute Canada. And then it's a matter of just clicking on the register link, which is just three spots or 2 spots beside the sign-in button at the bottom. So ccdb.computecanada.ca, and we click on the register link on the bottom right corner of the screen, and you can begin to create an account. And I'll talk about the different account types in just a moment. If you have any trouble with this, then the email address at the bottom of the screen should help you out. Send an email to accounts@computecanada.ca. That will typically get redirected to somebody within WestGrid, if you're within WestGrid, or into one of the other consortia, if that's where you're from. And somebody will get back to you and be able to walk you through that process. Once you have an account, if you wanted a WestGrid account in particular, and you will want a WestGrid account in particular if you would like OwnCloud as a resource, then when you log in the very first time, what you can do is in the top left-hand corner of this screen, you can see that there's a number of different tabs. There's My Account, Rack Applications, FAQs, and so on. If you click on the My Account link, the 4th option down will be Apply for a Consortium Account. You click on this, you choose WestGrid, and the WestGrid services will be turned on for you. As I mentioned before, we're a family, so you don't have to be part of WestGrid to turn those services on. The people in WestGrid don't have to be part of Calcul Quebec to turn on the services that are available for Calcul Quebec consortium members. So you log on, you create an account, ccdb.computecanada.ca. It takes a little bit of time for that account to become active because we have human beings that actually check that you really are the researcher that you say you are. But once that's turned on, might take about 24 hours, then you can come in here and you can choose to have access to the WestGrid resources, in particular OwnCloud. So just finishing up here, you need to understand, everybody should understand, that we have 2 types of accounts and we have 2 types of allocations. We'll go through the account types first. The first are PI accounts, or Principal Investigator accounts. These are the accounts that have the focus point in terms of the power and control of the system, right? Not in the system administrative sense, but in terms of the resources that are available and attached to this account. So PI accounts are particularly for faculty members and for librarians. The librarian designation is new, and we're hoping that this is going to bring more researchers on board because librarians are doing a lot of work. And depending on what university you're at before, it was unclear if librarians were faculty or not. Compute Canada has decided that librarians are going to count as PIs as far as it's concerned. So with that PI account, you can then sponsor other users, right? So who would a PI sponsor? Well, typically they're graduate students, right? And the powers of that PI then get distributed down to the sponsored account users. And you can add graduate students, you can add international collaborators, you can add people from outside academia, right? Anybody that you're working with to get your research done, it's potential for you to have a sponsored account for them. And so with these 2 account types, there's also 2 different styles of allocation. The first one is what we often refer to as the default allocation. Yes, we have all these systems in terms of compute power and storage, but a lot of it is allocated through a granting process for particular projects. What we try and do, and we work very hard at this, is to have 20% reserved for anybody, for everybody, right? And that 20% is what we call the default allocation. So on Silo, when I was talking about the 1.5 terabytes that's there, that's part of the 20%. That's the default allocation that every researcher would receive. And it's the default allocation that gets copied to the sponsored account. So a principal investigator, they would receive the default allocation on Silo, but each of their sponsored accounts will also receive the default allocation on Silo. And the same is true for compute across the systems. So you can prototype systems, you can build them up, and you can get ready for applying for a granted allocation through a process that we often call the RAC, R-A-C, the Research Allocation Competition. We also have one called RPP for Research Portals and Platforms, and that one's a little bit more cloud-focused, but the goal here is the same. We will give a large chunk of our resources to research projects that show clear scientific merit and clear technical competence, right? We want to give this power to the researchers that are able to make use of these systems to do the kind of important work that Canadian researchers do. So principal investigators are able to apply and receive these granted allocations. Sponsored accounts are not able to apply and receive these granted allocations. And it's also the case, unlike the default where everybody, both PIs and sponsors, receive the default allocation, only the PI receives the granted allocation. They can share it with the sponsored accounts, but it's not the case that it's a full mirror of that allocation in the way that it is with the default accounts. So, a great place for you to go for more information, particularly about WestGrid, is westgrid.ca. This is a snapshot from the westgrid.ca homepage, and you can see some of those core institutions on the map that's here. The support tab here at the top, in the top right corner, is a great resource, particularly if you're already using the systems and you want to know which systems are up or down or under maintenance, when they might come back online. You can find that information up there. You can also find some really nice user documentation and some frequently asked questions. There's other resources here for you as well. If you're poking around on here and you're not finding what you need, this is a great email address. support@westgrid.ca. Tells you exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get WestGrid support, right? And if they can't help you, well, remember, we're part of a very large family. And so they'll reach out to other support analysts across the country and will get you the help that you need in order to do the research that you need to do. So, in conclusion, I'd like to remind you that Compute Canada really intends to be your portal for research. We're undergoing a time of change, and that's an exciting time for us. We want you to help us, right? Help you. Tell us what you need. Come and use the system. Every account, all of our accounts are free, right? Sign up, right? There's nothing here for you except for very, very good things. This will change the way you do your work. So, thank you very much. In conclusion, Compute Canada, WestGrid, help us power up your research. Ask questions of the people that are at your sites. And if you're joining us just individually from your desk or at home, then please keep those email addresses in mind. Go to computecanada.ca, go to westgrid.ca, see what's there, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We did have a request from a couple of the researchers. The piece that we missed during the pause there was the part on own cloud. Could you perhaps go through that slide one more time? We've had a request to fill in that gap a bit.
Yes. Can you see the slide? Sorry, I flipped through a lot of slides there. And almost there. It's the wrong one. It's coming.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the delay is on that. We'll have to look into that, but thank you for your patience with that.
So we're seeing it here, so it's gone somewhere and come back. Hopefully it's at the other sites too.
It is, yeah, we can see it. Thank you.
OwnCloud, as a really practical hands-on storage solution, I'll just give you the whole OwnCloud pitch again. OwnCloud is different from the other sorts of storage, which are really focused on holding very particular pieces of data for sitting right beside the compute on the systems and processing your research. OwnCloud is a Dropbox-like solution that you can use to manage a research lab, for example. Because you can share documents, you can give permission to access various folders and so on and so forth, just like you can in Dropbox. So, unlike Dropbox though, where you get a very small, a few gigabytes default allocation, and then you can extend it by inviting friends, right, or paying them. The OwnCloud solution that's provided by WestGrid right now, so this is why you would need a WestGrid account, and that's why I show you how to get that. The OwnCloud solution from WestGrid will give you 50 gigabytes as the default allocation, right? So every researcher or so those are all those PI accounts or any of the sponsored accounts, each of them will get a 50 gigabyte allocation in OwnCloud, which you can then access through your laptop, your desktop. OwnCloud is an open source tool. They do have apps available for your phones, whether they're Android or iOS. Because those aren't actually produced by Compute Canada, OwnCloud does have a small fee. I think it's $1.99 for the iOS app and 99 cents for the Android one. But you can now access and control your papers, right? Your research data in terms of sharing this with people in your lab. And you now have the space to do it. So OwnCloud is intended to be a research replacement for trying to get by with the default allocations in Dropbox, which are small, and we've been hearing over and over again are prohibitive, right? They just get in the way. So here you can keep all your stuff. Is that good, Todd?
That was perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a question here on site, so I'll just pass the mic over.
Thank you. Great introduction. So I want to know, let's say if I have a drive, my own hard drive, is it synchronized with my own account for the OwnCloud? Yeah.
So the question was, if you have your own hard drive, will it synchronize with OwnCloud? Exactly. So if you can choose to have that option. So you get OwnCloud on its own, and it can just sit out there in the cloud, and you can interact with it through the web interface. Or you can download the client for Linux, Windows, or Apple, and then it'll behave just like a Dropbox folder then. There'll be a particular folder on your drive. Everything you dump in that drive will then be uploaded to the server. And what a great option that is, because now you have some built-in redundancy for your data, because not only is it held somewhere else, but the servers that it's held on have redundancy built into them as well. So sure, there could be a power outage in BC. That never happens, right, which might prevent you from using the system for a while, as was the case just a few months ago. But you know your data is still there, and it's safe, right, and you've got it in more than one place. So there's a replication that you can benefit from as well. So absolutely, yes. Other questions anywhere else? People would like to talk to their site analysts, their site leads who have hopefully joined them at the other locations. We have another question here. I'll pass the mic.
So far, let's say I want to use this, but it's not a matter of programming. I want to learn programming. I want to get one of the Python parallel process, or MPI, or OpenMP. I know C. I just need to know how to use MPI. For a couple of examples on numerical computation, we provide such workshop training or things like that. That's what we need.
I promise he's not a plant. But great question. So the question here was, how do I learn how to use parallel programming, right? OpenMP, MPI, these sorts of things. Yeah, it's quick stuff. So great question, because over the next few weeks, Compute Canada and WestGrid are providing a series of training, right? So let me skip ahead some slides here again. And I'll show you where you can find that on the WestGrid site. Because Masao, your session is in November. Okay. What's the beginning for that? So here's our WestGrid slide. And then I've cut it off, but there's a list here on the bottom right-hand corner, which I cut off for cleanliness of the slide. But there's a list of upcoming events that are here. And so over the next few weeks, we'll have some more introductory lectures, not lectures, but workshops that are focused on how to begin or start some of that process. In the spring, typically many of the institutions that are part of WestGrid will offer individual hands-on workshops. And we're moving to offer these workshops more and more often. So here at the U of A, they'll be part of Research Data Management Week. And we'll go through how to actually use and include some of those pieces of code so that you can make use of that parallelization. If you want some of that in advance, then that's the sort of thing that you can come and have a conversation with. We can either perhaps have a short discussion, one-on-one. If you have a larger group that might benefit from that, perhaps we could set up a particular workshop for you as well. So, yeah, because it's in our best interest for you to know how to use the parallelization, right? Otherwise, it's not good for you, and nothing's adding to it, and it's not good for us. There's another piece that is often overlooked, and that's scheduling. And Camille, who's here with us at U of A, he has a series of scheduling talks that are coming up in the next few weeks as well. And this will give researchers a view on how their jobs or the work that needs to be done is distributed through the processors over time. How do you maximize the throughput? And so there's a whole number of different variables that need to be taken into account. And that talk focuses on making you aware of them and then how to tune them so that you can get the most work done. So in short, there's a series of more information sessions that are coming up, and you can see that in the events section here on the WestGrid page. And each of the individual institutions that are part typically offer hands-on workshops as well. And you have to speak to your institution, right? So support at westgrid.ca would be a place to send that. Who should I talk to at my institution? How do I find out what's coming up here for hands-on stuff?
John, I was just going to add too, beyond that,
Please.
There is some archives online from our past sessions that delve into that, but definitely some upcoming sessions would be very useful.
And in some of the support links, there's some walkthrough on how to do some components too.
Yeah, search the website. There's some good information on there too. So.
Anything else for me?
I don't think we have any remote questions here by the looks of it. So if you have no more questions locally, I think we'll wrap it up. So I wanted to say thank you very much to John for the great talk today. And as he mentioned, if you have any follow-up, there's people in the room you can talk to and get to know, or support at westgrid.ca is a fabulous email address to send questions to, and really qualified technical people will get back to you immediately with all sorts of good suggestions and answers. So thank you all for attending, and please keep an eye out also, as John mentioned, for upcoming sessions that may be of interest to you. Thank you very much, everyone.